If you're looking for a magical night out in Chicago, then you got to head over to Teatro Zinzanni. It's more than just dinner and a show. It's comedy, music, acrobatics, it's Cirque, all under an intimate tent atop the Cambria Hotel in the Loop. Trust me, I pulled up on them. They have some powerhouse singers. The acrobatics is out of this world. And if you sit close enough, you might find yourself a part of the show that evening. And you can use code CityCast for $20 off tickets through February 28th at zinzanni.com/Chicago. Today on CityCast Chicago, Bally's permanent casino is unlikely to open this year. Chicago is not buying back the parking meters, and we celebrate the end of a magical Bears season. It's Wednesday, January 21st. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. I've got executive producer Simone Alisea in the building. How you feeling today, my friend?
Hey, I'm all right, Jacoby. How are you?
I'm doing good. I bet you are doing good. Your Seahawks are in the NFC Championship after stumping a mud hole in the 49ers over the weekend. I wish we could have been as lucky as I see here with my ginger ale and Kleenex.
Yeah, I had it is wild to be in a position where it's like I have two chances of joy and success during these playoffs, but yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about the Bears later on in the show. So I'll save it till we get there.
At the end of the day, two cities in need of a good win. But let's start today's conversation with Springfield. Illinois lawmakers are back there in session, and amidst midterm elections, they are staring down a $2.2 billion budget gap, growing calls to create more affordability across the state, and increasing funding loss from the federal government. And that's just to name a few, my friend. So much more we'll cover in the months to come. But one group hoping to get their attention is Bally's Casino. Representative Cam Buckner recently introduced legislation to grant the casino an extension at their temporary Medina Temple site. Simone, let's get into the details here. What's happening?
So it's a potential for essentially like a 12-month extension. Folks may remember the Bally's permanent casino in River West at the old Tribune publishing site it was set to open September of this year, September of 2026, but there have been several delays in making that work. Work stoppages having to do with the demolition of debris. There was issues.
Wastewater into the river.
Yeah, well, and there were questions. They had to do some redesign stuff to not affect the city's water main, and so that took some time. There was also an issue of use of unapproved contractors and
somebody in waste management connected to the mob potentially. I remember that
story. Which is sort of like almost an aside in a way to like. It's just a weird, I don't know. That was just a weird one. And then they had financing issues, and they had to they were having some issues actually funding the whole project, and had to, ink a big deal and get some other investors on board to make that happen. And so, this extension would allow the temporary casino to continue operating in hopes, to bridge the gap, basically, because if the temporary casino doesn't operate before the permanent casino is up and running, then Chicago gets no tax revenue from casino gambling, right? Which was the whole point of the entire Bally's project, why we embarked on this to begin with. And so, I don't know that this will get a ton of pushback in Springfield. I don't expect this to be necessarily a huge debate. I think, at this point, the Chicago leaders are pretty all in on making sure that casino gets built, because if it doesn't, if that casino doesn't happen, I think there will be a sense that it'll be a lot of wasted effort. But interesting to see the saga, the story of this casino, and the saga of the casino is really just a story that keeps on giving here in Chicago.
They were picked as the selection to host the permanent casino all the way back in 2022, and now they are likely to be delayed at least until early 2027 projections right now put it at around September 2027. The temporary casino opened in September of 2023. So we got a little bit of data on that to this point. Has it been delivering on its revenue projections? Chicago isn't the only place to get not just a temporary, but a permanent casino over the last few years. So there are increasing competitors. Online gambling has shot up over the last few years as this project has been coming to fruition. So how has the temporary casino been delivering?
Yeah, anticipating some of the maybe disappointing numbers here. I mean, I think the biggest one in 2024, right? The temporary casino was initially projected to bring in some $35 million in tax revenue, and it only brought in about 16 million. So, less than half. And so then they revised the projection for 2025. So they revised that projection. They're like, okay, we're only going to expect them to bring in $16.5 million. But once again, the temporary casino fell short, bringing in $15.8 million. Again, closer to the projection, but a far cry from the initial $35 million that officials had hoped the temporary casino could bring in. I think these numbers,
and that's in the tax revenue. Like overall, it's generating $100+ million. But yeah, because if just the overall temporary site was just doing 15 million.
No. That's not gross receipts. It's not gross revenue. That is just in the tax revenue. But I think the tax piece is what Chicagoans are most interested in, because again, the whole point was to build this casino to bring in revenue in order to shore up city pensions, pensions for police and firefighters, right? Which, as we have talked about ad nauseum on the show, Chicago has a pension problem and a pension funding problem. And so I think that's why we're tracking the tax revenue so closely. But to your point, Jacoby, there is sort of a lot going on that even in 2022, we were starting to see on the horizon. But I think, the proliferation of casinos around Chicago, I mean, we've heard from people in our inbox and from around that's like, well, it's actually already easier for me to get to a casino out in the western suburbs or down south than it is to get to a potential casino downtown or getting to River North, right? And we've seen so many of those pop up in the past several years. Then there's this new promise of legalized video gambling, right? Sort of video slot machines that has this part of the 2026 City of Chicago budget. Now, granted, there are more questions than answers on how that's going to unfold, like even in sort of the optimistic timeline that city council members approved in their plan. Licenses for those wouldn't even start coming out until July of this year. And there's a lot of questions about how much revenue that is going to bring in. But Bally's has kind of come out pretty aggressively to be like, hey, if this happens in Chicago, it's going to eat into our potential revenue. And it's like, it's going to cause a huge problem for this deal that we inked on. And then on top of all that, you have the sports betting of it all.
And they came together to sue the city.
Yes, right now there is a trade group of I think it's called the Sports Betting Alliance that is suing the city of Chicago because also in the 2026 budget, City Council opted to apply the city's amusement tax on sports bets. Right now, the state already taxes sports betting pretty heavily. We've made, Illinois has generated in 2025 $429 million in sports betting tax revenue. But what we have also learned is the state over the past since it was legalized in 2019, the state has raised those taxes on sports bets a few different times. And the number of bets did drop in Illinois in 2025. And there is there's some speculation here that bettors are not liking the new taxes, the new fees, and that, an additional fee in Chicago in particular on online sports betting, but also, of course, we have the sports books, at Wrigley, and there's supposed to be a sports book at the Bally's Casino as well. Questions about how profitable those can be if they become too expensive for people to place their bets. So a lot happening in the gambling world vis-a-vis public revenue to Chicago and Illinois. I think one of the most interesting kind of financial things that is happening in Chicago right now, that there is this real trend of plugging budgets with gambling money. I'm not sure about the message that sends.
No.
But I also am like, we don't have financially, we don't have a ton of levers to pull. So I guess why not pull this one? Which has kind of been the argument. It's like, well, people are going to gamble anyway. We might as well make something off it, which, ooh.
It gets really hard to do messaging targeted at young people or just messaging in general about, the oxymoron that is responsible gambling. The fact that on one hand, it's just happening in our culture. It's everywhere we look. It's in all of our advertising. And also our city and state are looking at it as a necessity in their forthcoming budget gaps in the years to come. Really give these casinos and these gambling houses leverage in this cultural moment. And while Bally's currently is not the top revenue producer amongst casinos in the state, they are still hopeful that beyond the 3,300 slots and the 173 tables, that the 3,000 seat entertainment venue, the public park, the restaurants, the food hall, the bars, that it creates a small entertainment district around the casino that further kind of entrenches it in that not only River West community, but in the larger hotspots in the city for entertainment, for nightlife, for going out with your people. And so, like you said, this saga is far from over. The most Tony Award nominated play of all time is in Chicago for 2 weeks only, and you've got to check out the legendary Stereophonic. Stereophonic tells the story of an up-and-coming 70s rock band as they record a new album, finding themselves suddenly on the cusp of superstardom. Will the ensuing pressure spark their breakup or their breakthrough? With the original music from Arcade Fire's Will Butler, catch Stereophonic from January 27th to February 8th at the CIBC Theater. And for more information, visit BroadwayInChicago.com. So one of Chicago's most hated political decisions of the last 25 years was back in the news. Of course, I'm talking about Chicago's infamous $1.15 billion 75-year parking meter deal. And the big question was if Mayor Brandon Johnson would attempt to buy back those parking meters. And late Tuesday afternoon, we got the answer to that, Simone.
Yeah, the answer to that was no. No, we will not. But for a few days, there was so much speculation over whether Chicago might get their parking meters back. I don't know if we were just riding high on some Bears playoff optimism, Jacoby.
It was like anything is possible. We could beat the Packers. We could get back the parking meters. We could replace all the lead pipes. We could do it all in our lifetime. And I will say, we have covered this deal ad nauseum at this point. We have talked about it time and time again. It feels like one of those political talking points that a ton of Chicagoans are actually tapped into.
Right. So to explain the parking meter deal to anyone who doesn't know what this is, right? Back in 2008, heart of the recession, Chicago City Council, but pushed primarily by Mayor Daley, pushed forward this deal to lease most of Chicago's parking meters to a private company, now known as Chicago Parking Meters, LLC. The idea was that the city could get $1.15 billion, more or less upfront, a big influx of cash to shore up the city budget without raising property taxes. And in return, this private company would deal with the, maintenance and, but would also get all of the revenues from those parking meters, which, as it turns out, is a lot of revenue. And this was a 75-year deal, as you said, Jacoby. There's 57 years, I think, left on the lease as of now. And this ownership group has already made back their investment and then some. I think double their investment.
I was going to say,
at this
as
point.
Of last summer, reports were they were already north of $2 billion. They made $160 million in 2024. And to your point, back in 2008, the appetite for selling off something like the parking meters or the Skyway. Like, this went through city council pretty easily, given as much hate as we have for it now and as many people called it a bad deal then. This went through almost unopposed.
Yeah, only a few alders voted against this proposal. Basically, what happened over the past few days is, various sources were sort of circulating saying that this ownership group is looking to sell, that they're looking to kind of offload this asset. And so the question came up of like, well, could Chicago maybe buy it back? Now, what the mayor said on Tuesday was basically like, that in and of itself is maybe not the smartest financial move, considering that Chicago would have to go into debt in order to try to make that purchase. And we have talked a lot about how much debt Chicago is already in.
We're looking at $1 billion budget gap. This past budget debate, we're looking at it next year. And the likelihood that the sale price for this would be anything under $2 billion is highly unlikely. And so the city doesn't have that kind of cash and would likely have to borrow to pay that sticker price. And to your point, and you've said it time and time again, we borrow a lot of money. We're already indebted quite generations for some time.
But you were hopeful. You were like, but the meters though. But the meters.
Because I do think the idea that at this point, what is it, 18 years after the deal was cut, so many people are unified around the idea that this was a bad deal, the idea that Mayor Brandon Johnson could be the one to bring them back under control. And let's be real, one of the reasons they sold them is because it needed the type of modernization and infrastructure that the city didn't have. Well, they've been updated to this point. And so the thought is you bring them back in. We know from speed cameras and so many other ticky-tack fines that the city is trying to raise revenue and it's having a tough job. And so the idea of maybe bringing back on an asset that could bring north of $100 million every year, I can see why they're considering that. But to your point, someone would have to do the math to see if this is all feasible. And it seems like Mayor Brandon Johnson and his people did that math and realized it probably isn't worth the uphill battle, political headache, and the financial maneuvering this would take.
The question I still have that I don't think has been reported out quite is why are they looking to sell? Why is this ownership group looking to sell off what appears to be an extremely profitable asset, right? From where we sit here in Chicago, we're like constantly salivating over that potential revenue stream, right? But this consortium, led originally by Morgan Stanley, but joined later by Allianz Capital Partners, and then also the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Abu Dhabi. So when you feed your meter, that's where your money's going to most of the time, and not often in Chicago.
It seems like maybe it's a good time to sell high, right? The fact that it is still doing, $150, $160 million a year. They've already made back their original investment and can likely get from probably not the city at this point, but from some other group of private equity firms, could probably get $2.5 billion. And so, you've been in the parking meter game for almost 20 years. Maybe this is the time to go and flip it.
There's 57 more years left. There's lots of time left to keep making money on the parking meters.
This is true. This is true. If revenue projections even just held steady in the years to come, would continue year after year, every time those spreadsheets come out, continue to just embarrass city leadership.
Well, isn't that what the head tax was supposed to raise? Isn't that what the head tax was supposed to raise? Like 100.
It was 100 million, then it was 80 million.
Yeah,
it shifted a bunch, but I think the idea of bringing in that kind of money, even let's be real, none of you and I are not advocates for fines and fees and the city.
But I'm already paying it now.
Right.
This is the thing, this is a fee I am already paying. And again, I'd
rather pay it to Chicago than Abu Dhabi.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm not, this is not every single parking meter in the city, but it is a lot of them. It is many of them. And also, anytime Chicago shuts down the streets for street festivals or the like, we have to pay Chicago Parking Meters LLC. The city of Chicago has to pay for revenue that they lost out on because Chicago closed down that street for a street festival. And I just...
Do you think by closing the door this suddenly, the mayor gives up any potential leverage of negotiating a new partner?
I don't think so, because there already is, even in this deal as it is written, as bad as it is, there are provisions for if there is a sale, the city of Chicago has a say in kind of who that is, how that goes. Now, how much say do we have and how much actual power is it? I don't know. And this is what other insiders have sort of suggested, it is possible that Mayor Brandon Johnson and the city of Chicago makes changes at the margins here somehow. Maybe there is something to do about these true-up payments. Again, I don't think it means they're going away completely. Or maybe there is something to negotiate about, I don't know, even revenue share. I don't know, revenue share. Who knows? Somebody who's better at making business deals than me can figure out what kind of options there are there. But there is something that says that we have a say and we maybe can make some changes, which is what previous mayors have attempted to do and done with varying degrees of success. But it does seem like this is gonna keep dogging Chicago for years to come.
Before we get out of here, it has been a few days. I've had some time to process yet another thrilling Bears game. Unfortunately, unlike most of this season, the Magic didn't go in our favor on Sunday night but to once again be on prime time in front of the nation, getting to play meaningful playoff football. I didn't realize how long it had actually been, Simone. Like, we had a playoff game in 2020 and 2018, but I hadn't had this kind of hope since 2011, maybe 2006, and you forget that fan inside of me was somewhat dormant, and I didn't realize until this year how much spirit was actually in there. So it's tough for it to be at this point, but it was a good season.
The Bears' optimism got to me. The Bears hope bug, which I had been making fun of all Bears fans for the past 5 years.
Yes, you have. Yes, you have.
It hit me. So, right, just in case you didn't, if you somehow didn't see the game on Sunday, the Bears lost in overtime to the LA Rams at Soldier Field, which I got to tell you, I was pretty pissed off that a team from LA beat Chicago during one of the coldest days of the year. Like, I was just like, come on, guys. This is what we're here. This is Bears football. This is the whole point. This is what we're here for.
This is what we don't want to give up.
Yes.
With a dome in Gary or Arlington Heights. Most people want to keep that exact
that was supposed to be our
feeling,
our advantage. And I know you and others have pointed out that Matthew Stafford, the QB of the Rams, is certainly has his roots in cold weather football.
For sure, but he did not have a dominant game out there. You could tell that the cold was getting to both teams, but it was definitely getting to the Rams, who started out pretty hot. But for a season in which we were pretty terrible or just kind of below standards for 3 quarters, and then the best team in football in the fourth quarter with the most clutch quarterback, to actually be in the game the entire time was really great to see. I feel like we really finished, about as strong as one could hope for in a season that started with pretty low expectations. If you listen episode to episode, week over week, you can feel it really growing and bubbling up in all of us. I'm going to hold on to last week's game against the Green Bay Packers pretty much for the rest of my life. That this season was without a doubt one of the greatest seasons I've experienced as a Bears fan. And now it's the offseason of a lot of questions. We got a lot of free agents, but also a lot of young talent. Since 2002, There have been 27 teams that have gone from the bottom of their division to the top of their division. 2 of those teams pulled it off this year, the Bears and the New England Patriots. But only 8 of those previous 25 went back to the playoffs the next year.
Oof.
And so is this lightning in a bottle, or is this the start of something real? I lean towards the latter. I think this will be sustained. I think when you have young superstars at running back and tight end and on the offensive line and quarterback and wide receiver, and you've got a coach that wasn't just stern and unwavering in his vision, but over the year you just saw open himself up to his players,
and
to the media,
city.
and to the city at large.
Yeah.
It was really cool to see, but we know come the top of next year, hopeful of the draft and all the offseason moves to come, that our excitement will be worth something this next season. And so I'm excited about that. The other night, or the night after the game, Caleb Williams and P. Crow Armstrong, the center fielder for the Cubs, were both at the United Center for the Hawks game against the Winnipeg Jets. And it just happened to be the game where Jonathan Taves, the former youngest captain in the history of the Hawks, was back for the first time. He had been out for the last 2 years due to health reasons. So he's back in the league, back in Chicago for the first time since leaving the club. And to see the minutes long ovation he received, the love he received, not only for being a captain, for being a 3-time champion and a future Hall of Famer, but for being a Chicago legend, and to see, PCA, not playing for my favorite team, but to see him, and then to see Caleb's there getting a glimpse of what Chicago loyalty looks like, what Chicago love looks like, was a great moment, because I think, that young man put the C on his chest and get ready to invest millions upon millions of dollars, which I know a lot of people listening don't want to hear. But I think for the first time in my life, we got our guy, and Bears fans, regardless of what happens in Springfield and what happens with, the $1 billion fight for a new home.
Or in Indiana, for that matter.
Yeah, whatever the hell comes of this drama, I think for people who are most concerned with, 60 minutes of football on a cold Thursday, Monday, Saturday, Sunday, a lot is on the horizon for us, y'all.
This has been really fun, because I think I expected after the Rams game, I really expected for there to be more, again, Monday morning quarterbacking. Like, I really thought there was going to be a lot of like, oh, you should have done this. Like, I can't believe that. Like, a lot of bitterness, actually.
There was plenty. Was plenty.
But less than I expected.
Yes.
Like, the vibe I was seeing on social media and sort of across my friends was just like, man, we almost did it. Like, we're there. Like, I think it was like, as you say, going into this season after so many recent seasons of disappointment, a new head coach, like, I don't think the expectations, and again, it was just like, I don't know. It's just like the vibe I got, Monday morning after the Rams game was very much like, but we still beat the Packers though. We still beat them. We still did it. And like, I think, I am hopeful to see, as we head into the off season and everything else, I am hopeful that we can continue that, because Lord knows Chicago needs some good sports feelings right about now. I think now's the time. I think we deserved it. I think we've waited long enough, and we're ready for some success here.
Yeah, no, and next year, all this comeback kid, cardiac Bears ish, like that's not gonna do, because we got to remember, we in the regular season we could have 6 more losses. We were 2, 3, 4 minutes away from 6 more losses in a lot of cases. So next year, I want to be the ass kicking Bears. Every single week, teams come in here knowing we probably gonna have to put up 30, 35 to put down with this team. That's what I'm trying to see next year. And so we're ahead of schedule, but now that we're here, let's just keep it going. Bear down.
Bear down.
I want to give a huge thank you to our executive producer, Simone Alicea. Always a good time.
Hey, thanks, Jacoby.
And for the rest of you listening, you know we can't close the door without some good news. The Chicago International Puppet Theater Festival. I've talked about it a few times. It's going to be the last time you hear from me, but it is officially kicked off. And I wanted to attend every year, but never found the time. And tonight I'm going to be at the Studebaker for their opening night, which includes a showing of Dead as a Dodo. They got plenty of shows that still got tickets, but the sellouts are piling up. So check the link in our show notes. And as always, I appreciate you for listening, reading, making time for little old City Care Chicago. We're going to be back bright and early tomorrow. We'll talk to you then. Peace.
I was going to say something real and that it wasn't just yelling, and now I can't remember what I was going to say.